Hey guys, welcome to Cooking with Chase. Hope everyone's having a great day. Today we are making pizza, which is very exciting for me. So grab a drink, let's get cooking. Cheers. Okay, today we are talking about homemade pizza. How to get that really crispy, kind of like takeout restaurant quality crust at home. I'm going to show you the way that I do it, and then while that pizza's cooking, I'm going to give you guys a couple other options if you don't have a stone. We're going to talk about stretching, the proper way to stretch the dough. That being said, if you want to roll it out with a rolling pin, that is also fine. So, first of all, dough. There's lots of dough recipes on the internet. You guys can look up a pizza dough recipe. I'm sure lots of you guys have the pizza dough recipe if you're watching these videos. Also, Metro or a lot of grocery chains sell pre-made pizza dough, and that's fine. It's a good product. Also, a lot of times you can buy it if you have a favorite pizzeria. You can go in there and ask to buy a couple rounds. They call them rounds in the pizzeria from your local pizzeria, and I'm sure they will sell you a couple just to cook at home. So this is a recipe for my dough, and the only thing I'll say is if you're getting it from the grocery store or making it at home, you don't want to just make it and let it, what they call a bulk rise, sitting in a large bowl, kind of be cutting off pieces and trying to roll it out. You'll never get a nice round crust, and it'll never puff correctly. So whatever you're doing, whether it's buying store-bought dough, making it on your own, you want to portion it out and portion it into the size of pizza you're going to make, and then let that rest. Let that chill for a couple hours at least. I did this yesterday. You can do this the day before and just have these sitting in the fridge overnight. I pulled them out about 45 minutes ago, just to kind of, they're still cool, but they're not refrigerator cold. They're kind of tempered a little bit. And this is going to make the dough a lot easier to work with. And if you ever have that experience of you're rolling out your dough and you roll it out or you stretch it and it just shrinks, comes right back, the gluten is just too tight. He's got to give it a chance to relax. I always kind of say when I'm talking to cooks or anyone when we're talking about making bread or anything, you can only ever do one thing to dough at a time. You can't take two activities. So you can mix it, and then you have to let it chill. And then you can portion it, and then you have to let it chill. And then you can stretch it, and then you can cook it. But you can't really rush those things. You have to kind of give them a chance to give it some time in between. So, and a portion, the general rule is kind of an ounce per inch of pizza. If that makes, if you don't have a scale, well, I'll give you a couple measurements. So these weigh roughly 250 grams if you have a scale, and that'll give you about a 12 to 14 inch pizza, depending on how you stretch it. If you don't have a scale, you want to kind of go for about a fist size portion. We'll give you again about a 12 inch pizza, which is good for one per adult, 2 kids, kind of thing. And now I'm going to go over and talk about stretching. Always keep your dough covered. You really don't want it to dry out. Here. Okay, so there's a top and a bottom to a dough. So this is the top that was on top of the pan, and that's going to become the bottom of the pizza. So this is just all-purpose flour, which is what I use to make the dough, and you're just going to get it completely coated in flour here. And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to keep as much air in the crust as you possibly can, so you get that nice big puffy crust, but you're trying to push out all the air in the middle of the dough, so you don't have any, if there's a big air bubble, when you go to stretch it, that's when you get those thin spots, and they tear, and they'll burn through, and when you put it on your stone, the sauce will push through it, and it will stick to your stone and not be a good time. So what I'm doing here is I'm just using my thumbs. Ty, if you want to come around here. So I'm kind of pinching the dough, and I'm just letting the motion of the weight of the dough start to pull it down. And I'm just going around once, and you can already see that I've got a crust starting to develop, but I haven't done anything to here. Now what you're going to do, and if you ever feel sticky at all, don't be afraid to add more flour. Now what I'm doing is I'm just pushing it down just to make sure there are no air bubbles. Because like I said, if there was an air bubble right here, when we go to stretch it, there'll be a really, really thin spot. And then you're putting wet sauce on it, you're putting cheese on it, you're trying to transfer it from your cutting board to your pizza peel, to the oven, all those motions, it's going to tear, you're going to have a hole in your pizza, it's going to burn on your stone, not a good time. So just really take some time. You can also correct the shape a little bit. And now we're ready to go to the stretching stage. So there's a ton of ways to stretch it. From this point, the way that I do it, you kind of get your hand underneath here. You flip it onto your hands. So we go into here. Again, this is the bottom of our pizza. Flip it onto here. And you're not stretching. People think you're stretching to the middle. I'm just going to flip this down. So I'm just going to motion it here. You're not stretching out like this from the middle. You're stretching the sides. If you stretch from the middle of your pizza is going to be so thin, it's going to do the same thing. You're going to add the sauce, try to put it on your stone. It's just going to tear. So you flip it on, and what you're actually doing, you can kind of see, is I'm stretching on the sides here. This is really weird to like try to show this. I'm going to go a little bit bigger than that, but I just want to show you that, you see how the middle isn't any thinner than the edges? That's from that motion of pulling on the sides. Like, sorry, I'm pulling basically here on the pizza. So I'm going to go just a little bit bigger. There we go. That size. Then, pizza peel. If you have one, they're fantastic. If you don't have a pizza peel and you're just transferring to a stone in the oven, it's okay. You can do this whole thing, dust the back of one of these, and you can, like, it's a little harder, but you could dust the back of this and fire it into the oven on anything flat. A baking tray, pizza cooker, whatever. But if you're doing a lot of pizza, these peels aren't super expensive and they last forever, so. Okay, so. Pizza peel, again, it's a little bit of all-purpose flour. Onto there. I'm just going to stretch this out a little bit more. There we go. Perfect. And you can massage it and work it, right? Like, this is not a super delicate thing. You can kind of get your circle, do all that, this. Okay, so now we're talking about topping the pizza. It's on your peel. You can see you've got a nice crust developed on there. You've kept a lot of that air inside the edge, which is great. So where a lot of people go, my Uncle Adrian has a pizza oven, a wood fire oven in his backyard. They do these big pizza cookouts, and everyone makes their own pizza. And it's the natural instinct to just be like, oh man, I've got like a giant bowl of cheese, and I got sausage, and I got ham, pineapple. And just like pile everything on there. And pizza is one of those things where less really is more. Because think about how thin this dough is. And you're asking it to support a wet sauce, cheese, meat. There's a lot of things you're asking of this dough. So when you hold it up, you get a nice crisp slice of pizza. So you want to go lighter than you think, especially with the cheese. That's when I first worked, my first job in a pizzeria. I couldn't believe how little cheese we were actually putting on the pizzas. And you still get all the flavor. It absolutely still does not taste like you're skimping on anything. But you can buy a pizza sauce. They sell it in the stores. They're fine. I made this one. This is just crushed tomatoes, some raw garlic, basil, salt. And then I just used a hand blender. You could do it in a blender. You could do it in a food processor. Or you could just buy it, whatever. Spreading from the middle, coming out right to the edges, and you really want to make sure that sauce is nice and thin in the middle. So that's the weakest point of the structure, is the middle. And I've got some mozzarella cheese. This is Trestella, the ball mozzarella. They sell it, I'm pretty sure, everywhere. And then I grate it, and to grate it, stick it in the freezer. It will grate a lot easier. Some of this on. And that's all I'm going to do for the mozzarella. Nice and light. This is a Parmesan or Pecorino, just some type of hard aged cheese. And this just adds a nice little bit of richness. It's like another flavor. The mozzarella gives you that nice stretch and that nice chew. This gives you that like real depth of cheese flavor. And then from here, this is, you can kind of go wherever. So I'm just going to do a pizza I like, which is just red onions, raw. I don't soak them in water like we talked about for sandwiches or anything because they're getting cooked. But again, that kind of less is more mentality. A little bit of red pepper. There. And this is some bacon that we had left over. Always make sure you're cooking your bacon before you put it in the pizza. 2 reasons. One, the pizza cooks faster than bacon takes to cook. And the other thing is there's so much fat in bacon that like if you don't render out some of that fat, get rid of some of that fat cooking ahead of time, it's just going to be a really, really greasy slice. There. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay. So it doesn't look like there's a lot going on this, but absolutely. You'll get all the flavors. That's what I really hate it when there's so many toppings and you can't taste all the other things. You know, you go on and it's just like, oh, this just tastes like a giant mouthful of cheese, or the dough is too thick and you just feel like you're eating bread, right? You should be able to taste the sauce, taste the cheese, taste every topping. I add just a little bit of olive oil on top, and if you want that New York slice, what they do in New York that's different than Neapolitan style beef, they add dried oregano on top of it. Which I think will work kind of nice for this guy. Perfect. Okay, so now we're talking about putting the pizza into the oven. So if you've got a peel, you can shake it. You can see how the pizza's moving. So I know it's ready to fire off. If this was stuck, what you can do is you can lift it up and blow underneath. And that'll help, not lubricate it, but loosen it if you didn't have enough flour on your peel. So we're going to go to the oven, get her off. Here. Okay. So, I'm cooking on a pizza stone right now, which is, if you're doing a lot of pizza at home, by far, you're going to get the best results. If you don't have a pizza stone, that's fine. You could stretch it the exact same way, do everything I just did, and just put it right onto a baking sheet. It doesn't have to be a round pizza one, it could be a square one. And you could do smaller pizzas for the kids and fit a couple on there. The only thing, if you're doing that, is you're really going to want to work your oven. What I mean by that is start the pizza, because the deck of the pizza oven is what's giving the crust its crisp. Right? In electric ovens, it's floating in the air. Yeah.
Can we talk about the temperature that the oven's at right now?
As hot as your oven gets. Just as hot as it gets. So mine's 545. I don't think this oven actually is 545. It's a very old electric oven that came with our house. But just literally as hot as your oven will go. And if you're using a stone, I put the stone in at like 3 o'clock. I did it for like a full 2 hours before I wanted to cook on it. To really make sure that it was like fully heated up. So, if you're going to be cooking on this, to kind of help give yourself the best chance to have a really nice crisp crust, you'll notice that the stone, I just don't want to open the oven door too much because we'll lose all our heat, but the stone is on the very bottom rack of our oven because that's where the heat in this oven is all coming from the bottom. So I'm trying to get as much heat to that stone as possible. If you're cooking a pizza on this, same concept. You're going to want to start it at the bottom of your oven, and then if the top isn't crispy, but the bottom's done, pull it out, turn your broiler on, put your pizza back in under the broiler to get the top cooked. Really, our broiler is broken on this oven, so I can't do that. But I would be doing this with this pizza as well. I'd be getting it really crispy on the stone, pulling it out, turning on my broiler, firing under the broiler to get the cheese super bubbly and crispy. But you work with what you got, right? And this is what we have. So that's, if you're cooking on a sheet pan, whatever shape it is, that's really what you're going to want to be doing. Starting on the bottom, moving it to the top. If you have a convection oven, you don't need to go as close to the bottom because the heat is moving around a lot better, but you're still going to want to use the broiler. I know most of you watching probably have nicer ovens than we do here. Check out this little pizza. Okay, so you can see it's starting to cook up. Cheese starting to bubble, starting to do good on there. Not done though. So I've got another round here. So while we're waiting for that to cook, I'll stretch out another round. Kind of give you guys another demo on that. Hopefully that piece will be done. Again, this was the top. I always flip the top of your round, which is now the bottom of your pizza. Be generous with this flour. Your sticking is not a great time. Having stuck a number of pizzas onto a wood fire oven. So again, I'm just kind of pinching and letting the weight of the dough there. Pushing down. And if you're looking for a really great demo or a really good recipe for pizza dough, chefsteps.com has a really great recipe for home cooks. So again, I've kind of got it all pressed. I'm ready to stretch. Hand underneath. You're flipping it onto your kind of knuckle, your claw. It's called a claw. And we're going, and again, remember we're pulling from the sides. It's really hard to slow this motion down. And the dough's robust, right? Like don't be afraid of it. You can kind of not toss it around necessarily, but the gluten's really developed if you've done it, had a good recipe. So you can kind of hold it and you might be scared of it. On there.
What was the recipe site again?
Chefsteps.com. Great reference for when I started cooking before I moved to Toronto. It was up, and it's kind of a great step for home cooks that want to kind of push their cooking into a little bit more of a professional realm. They've got some good recipes on curing, and that was the first terrine recipe I made. It was off that website. It's a really good resource. Okay. Check on this little guy down here. Probably another minute and a half on that guy. I'm not going to top this one until that guy's out. It's almost done. Okay, top it real quick. So I've just got another cutting board here without any flour on it. Then I'm going to put the pizzas on to cut. Oh, and sorry, I forgot to mention this. So if I didn't have a pizza stone, but I have a cast iron pan, this would probably be my next favorite way to do pizza. So this is much more like a pan pizza, Detroit style kind of thing. Same recipe for your dough, but you're going to push it out in a cast iron pan. The nice thing about this is if your bottom isn't crispy, you can just take it. So you top your pizza the same way. Before you put it in the oven, you actually take it, get it on the burner to get some heat in your pan, fire it in the oven, and if the bottom isn't crispy, you just put it back on the burner and just toast your crust until it's like whatever crispiness you want. So that's another really great method. The only problem with this is most people only have one cast iron pan, so if you're cooking for a family or a large group, it's kind of time consuming.
If you do manage to rip the dough while spreading it,
Yeah.
are there any special techniques to use other than pressing with your fingers?
Nope. That's it. Fortunately. Yeah, it's just a pinch. The only thing is, you're not going to get it as big. Like the dough won't get as large anymore because you've kind of created a weak spot. So remember I talked about you can only ever do one thing to the dough. Fixing that tear is kind of the thing you did. So that's okay. Okay, so you can see on the bottom, it's a pretty nice color for a home oven. If you look here, you see how this cheese split? That is because my oven, you'll get this on a home oven, right? The reason why you don't get this on a commercial oven is it cooks so quickly, the cheese doesn't have time to split. And that's just the nature of the temperature difference, you know? Even 550 degrees, you know, not 600-700. So it takes kind of 5 minutes as opposed to 3. But it tastes fine, there's nothing wrong with it. Sounds crisp. Yeah. Good. So, a nice stiff point. If you can see it there, showing up. Good color, right? It's not that dark blistered black. You just don't get that temperature in a home oven, but it has got that nice brown, super crisp. Super quick, and yeah, that's homemade pizza. And I will tell you, if you kind of follow all the steps, and you use a good cheese, don't use the Kraft block mozzarella. They put something in there, the fat content. I don't know what it is. I don't know if the fat content isn't right or whatever. If it doesn't say pizza mozzarella or like a good quality, like just spring for it because it will just split and it won't melt right. You've gone all to this work to like stretch your dough and make your toppings. It's, you know, well worth the money spent on a good cheese. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you're cooking along or making recipes, be sure to tag me with Chase Bros. Hashtag Cooking with Chase. And stay home, stay safe, eat well, and I'll see you tomorrow for crispy chicken thighs. Have a good one, guys.